And we're back with episode 6, I believe. Today our guests are...
Alex Ramirez.
Grace Goen.
How y'all doing?
Doing well, yeah.
Doing well.
Really excited to be here on the podcast on Greater Oblivion, so thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for coming. You said it's y'all's first time doing a podcast?
It is, yeah.
Both of you?
I did one years ago. It was such a far back time, so I might as well count this as the first one.
Just like a one-off, like an episode. What was the podcast back then?
I think it was for Our Lady of the Lake. It was called like the Northwest Podcast for some reason, something like that. I can't remember the exact title, but I know just a couple students had me in to speak on their podcasts, which is pretty cool. And
then you've never done any podcasts?
Have not, no, I have not.
Interviews or anything? I've
done a few interviews, yeah. Yeah, I did one for the city of San Antonio, a few different magazines.
So you guys are, in the film industry in San Antonio, right? How long have you guys been involved in the film?
I started back in 2017, I would say, doing shorts.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I started around 2015 professionally. I was doing it in college, so 2010 through 2014, I was in the Valley, Rio Grande Valley. That's kind of where I learned how to make movies, how to write. I'd started in the theater to begin with, so I was writing plays, working with actors, but always had a love for making movies, and that was actually, theater's not a stepping stone, but it was kind of a stepping stone in order to get into making film and making my own projects.
Yeah. How about you? How'd you get started?
My dad is a photographer, so I kind of was self-taught for a while, and I ended up going to SAC in high school. And I made a few short films there, and then I decided to just keep pursuing it, and I went to Vancouver Film School.
Oh, nice.
It was a vocational program for a year, and then I came back here and just kind of been working freelance here ever since.
Yeah. Nice. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Do you do cinematography? Is that the main thing?
Yeah, I do anything in the camera and lighting department, and then on the side, I do my own projects, write and direct and stuff like that.
Nice. And then you write and direct?
Yeah, primarily. And edit by necessity.
Yeah. Same.
It's cheaper to edit on your own, but primarily I've done worked in most of every department, but really just kind of establishing myself as a writer and director since I guess 2015. That's what I've focused on.
Is there sorry, what were you?
I would say I guess it's just developed over time. You're now finding that that's your role, or your more your calling in a way.
Yeah, I've known it for a while. I think most filmmakers will, if they go to school for it, or if they're just kind of learning the ropes, they're going to be thrown into every department at least once, or, so, again, I worked in almost everything, but I always knew I wanted to write and direct, and that's kind of a love that came to me from my parents.
Cool.
Yeah. And just sneaking into movies with my dad, or watching like old movies on TV in black and white with my mom, and it was always like, I don't really care about acting in these, but like I'd rather like, you know, be the conductor, like writing and directing, like coming up with the story.
Very cool. Yeah. I think too, like growing up, your dad was a photographer, like just being exposed to that world, you kind of just start getting the gears going. And then once you figure out getting your hands in so much of that world, it's like, okay, what do I like? What do I want to manipulate? And how do I tell my own story? So as a graphic designer, I kind of do that too. Like it was just drawing comics and drawing characters. And then somehow over the years, it just turned into, well, now I want to do design for brochures and like marketing and graphics. And it's like, I never would have thought that those two would come to like, would bridge that, you know? So it's crazy.
Oh yeah, and it's hard because it's like coming from parents who are creative, or like kind of instill that in you. It's hard to have a real like regular job, like, you know,
yeah,
like
for sure.
I just haven't ever lived with a schedule, you know, like I've never had anyone in my life like work a 9 to 5. So I'm just like, how could I even?
Yeah, what is that?
What is that?
I was freelance last year. And now I have like a full-time 40-hour 9 to 5, and it's a weird adjustment.
Yeah,
like being able to, I guess not so much the freedom, but being on my own schedule, or like the personal freedoms. Like it's like one of the weird things is like having to build up time off from like every paycheck, but it's like I should just have that time. Like it's so weird.
Yeah.
But it's the rules, so it is what it is.
Yeah, is what it is. Is what it is.
And you mentioned, Sacy before. Like, I think, like, just, you haven't come from that, and that's a place I work now. I've like really been able, I think, to like not just call myself a filmmaker, but establish myself as like a media artist. So working in photography and graphic design as well. So
awesome.
It's like you said, you don't really think like, oh, maybe these two worlds can mesh, but when they do, it's like, oh, this is all part of the same thing, and like it's all creating art, creating some kind of creative expression. So
yeah, it's very cool. It's wild just having to put that time into it, and like that's the whole thing. It's like putting the time into the adventures and just learning the different roles, and just like, okay, this is me in that. So
yeah, I also think like the community of it too. Like like it's like, I feel like I always end up like meeting this, like circling back to the same groups of people. Like, I always end up working with the same people, even if it's been like a few years. You're like, oh, now I have the right project for you, you know? So it's kind of fun keeping that network together as well. Like with the different crafts we all juggle.
That's one of the fun things. I mean, like building your own like repertory company and like building like a quote unquote like family around like the kind of projects you like that are within your, I guess, your flavor. Like, I don't know, I always found that to be like one of the like unspoken just kind of like pleasures of just working in any like arts community, not just here but like anywhere, because you really do kind of like build that camaraderie, and that's always really nice. And if you don't have the right project to work on this year, maybe 3-4 years down the road it'll come.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. We just did the previous episode, I think was the last one we did, was another filmmaker. He's doing a documentary right now. And we talked about kind of that community aspect of it, like working with a consistent crew, like the same people. Like you show up on set and you're like, you know what I'm doing. Like we're on the same page. Like you don't have to, oh, this is how you do this, and like do all these things. Like just having that unit kind of feel.
That short
almost like military style without being too formal about it, I guess.
Yeah, or like when you're trying to talk to clients, like you're trying to talk between clients in front of them, and you're like, come over here, do over the.
So then, you guys are currently working on a project together, developing it. You want to talk about that a little bit? How did that come about?
Sure. Yeah. So the name of the project is Flowergiver. It's a feature film that, I've had in my head for more than a few years, but have finally now kind of taken the time to develop. And luckily, Grace came on to produce it. And it's a romantic drama. It's set in 2007, which is around the time I went to high school, was growing up. And it's about these two kids, Noah and Paola, who are growing up on the west side of San Antonio. It's heavily based in the Alasana Pache courts. And it's about all of the things their relationship has to contend with, things like addiction, familial abuse, as well as like it examines kind of the art community here on the west side of San Antonio. Paola's an artist. She's a muralist. And a lot of the work that she does is really rooted in her indigenous spirituality, which was something I was really, really interested in examining, not just like on paper on the screen, but like within myself. So, it's really based on a lot of the families that I knew kind of growing up on the west side. Noah comes from the kind of like skater punk kind of like vibe, that kind of crew, which, I always hold it down for the skater punks. So yeah, it's really just been, it's cliche to call something a labor of love, but it's like, what else do you call something that's been in your head for like a decade or longer? And it's something that I think is going to be really, really powerful once we, keep developing it, get it off the ground.
Yeah. So as it's over the years, as it's kind of been in your head, was it like bits and pieces kind of developed here and there? Or you have like, was the whole idea already there from the initial point and you just kind of figured out how to get there?
Like a vague plot, that has kind of been there from the beginning. I mean, I remember writing initial drafts. I went to, even though it's set like kind of like more inner city west side, like I went to John Jay High School, which is like far west side. But I remember writing drafts as far back as like 2008, 2009. And even back in the Valley when I was going to college, like writing more drafts of it. But it really wasn't until I think I turned 30 that I was like, okay, I need to stop all the other, not that the other projects are BS, but like when you get to a certain age, you kind of like want to, this is great, but this is really what I wanted to do. So I think that's kind of what happened once I like entered my 30s and was like, I guess I think in like really kind of like fatalist terms. So I'm like, I'm 30. I got like 30 to 50 years left. Like, let's see if I can finally do this.
Yeah. Just focus on the things that matter, like the real stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like we met in 2020, maybe 2019. 2019, I think.
2018, 2019, because I know you'd done some work with Stacey after you were after you graduated with TPR, I believe.
Oh yeah, yes,
Yeah.
Because we kind of met at this kind of like similar times in our career. I feel like we had both made, I don't know, over 3 short films, and we were both itching to like, all right, like what's next? Like let's get into features, but like that's a huge jump for a filmmaker. So we're both kind of just slowly trying to take that jump into like, I haven't produced a feature before, so this will be my first feature for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, making any kind of movie is tough, but yeah, especially to make a feature, to make a good feature. I think what's that like Spielberg quote where it's like it's hard to make like a good film. It's nearly impossible to make a great film.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean that I guess you could say for like any art form.
Just the miracle chance of having it be like great.
Yeah, I mean, just to like get a good project, so many things have to like go right.
Well, I remember, I think I read draft 4, the first rendition I read of Flowergiver, and I came to his table read, and I think at the time Alex kind of was like pretty much like set like this is the project kind of thing, correct me if I'm wrong, and then I like read it and I sent him a bunch of notes and I was like, I think this should change, what if you do this, and like I remember thinking like, oh, he's gonna hate me because like I just told him to rewrite this entire script, and then he came back and he emailed me like 2 weeks later and was like, this is amazing, I have to rewrite the whole script, and I'm like, oh my god, thank god, because like you never know when you give someone that many notes like how they're gonna take it. But Alex was like excited, and like it was just awesome having someone like ready for the challenge type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice having someone who won't bullshit you. Yeah, and sometimes even like if you're the creator of a project, sometimes you don't even know what the best thing is for that project. So, I mean, getting objective eyes is always really important. Luckily, I mean, you have like a great, cinematic eye and a great like just mind for story. But yeah, I think we did that that table read, which was with the San Antonio Screenwriters Guild and Trifecta Acting over at Alamo City Studios. It's been a year now because we did that in May of 2023. And that was draft 4, and we're about to enter draft 7. Yeah, so this is all
possibly the final draft.
Yeah,
Possibly.
Yeah, I feel like no.
That's good though. At least you kind of know,
like
we're getting there. It's almost there, and just be patient. Like we'll craft it, and it'll be good.
Well, I will say the fourth draft I thought was very touching. the sixth draft, I was like crying. So we're getting there,
cool.
you know?
Yeah.
At least from my
punch-ups.
perspective. I know you're so close to it. It's hard to even know what's up and down.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is that like? I'm sorry, like when you go through the different drafts and you see like the story kind of grow a little more, like did it ever grow in a way like you didn't think it would, or go in a direction that kind of surprises you?
For me, at least, you know, I'm just, you know, tweaking and giving like plot suggestions. Like the characters are Alex's, you know? And so for me, I'm like, oh, that's how she would do. Oh, that's why she's doing
cool.
that. I think for me, the fourth draft, there was a lot of things happening, but the sixth draft, I was like much more in tune with their motivations. So when they were doing something, I'm like, but you don't want that. Or like, you know, like you can't do that. Like, you know, like you're kind of, it gives you more of like, you know, a horror movie where you're like telling someone not to go in the other room. Cause it's like, you know what their motivations are. So you're like, you're kind of rooting for or against them a little bit more.
That's cool.
And I think especially to do like a story like this where you have like, it's a love story. And one of the main characters is female. So I think like there's just going to be some things that me being like a cis male would not get. So I think to like make the story as authentic as possible, like I needed to like listen to those suggestions. And you know, one of the things, I don't know if I ever told you, but like one of the things that also opened me up to that was I'd seen Before Sunrise, Richard Linklater's Before Sunrise, and I'd heard about like how they'd crafted the script, and there was, you know, tons of input from the actors, because I mean, they're the only two really in the movie, and they're saying all that dialogue, and even though it's like Richard Linklater's script, it's like, well, no, like they have writing credits on it. They came up with like a good portion of that dialogue, and just kind of like knowing all that, like for Flowergiver to be as good as like, you know, either of us want it to be, I think one has to be open to taking suggestions.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
Where you at now, as far as you have like a time frame, is when you want to get like things rolling, or there's like camera going, or is it just at this point just like so in the development stage still?
Definitely in the development stage.
Oh, yes.
For sure.
Yeah,
No, they take time, man. I understand that.
Yeah, this is this is a long haul project, so it's like you kind of like have to learn to be patient. I mean, I've been on plenty of like, I've done plenty of projects where it's like, oh, I just want to get it written, shot, cut out, but I don't know, to do like a major work that's going to like take years, you have to be patient.
Yeah, absolutely.
Patient and diligent. So, you know.
Yeah, especially when it's something so personal and like important to you. Like you have that like perfectionist attitude almost, where it's like, I don't want to like mess up what I'm trying to communicate.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, I'm a softie, so it's like I always wanted to like do like a love story, a romance, but like I wanted to, since it does deal with like these different communities on the West Side that like, you know, I go to work on the West Side, I grew up in the West Side, like I wanted to get those realities right and to be as authentic as possible. So, I mean, just kind of, again, opening yourself up to suggestions, knowing that what you have in your head may not, and oftentimes is probably not the best version of what it could be.
Yeah, for sure. So now you're doing this kind of love story thing. Is there a genre that you've kind of found yourself in previous work, like more dominantly, or do you just do different ones all over the place? It's a preference, I guess.
Yeah, you know, I because whenever people ask me this question, like, you know, it's always kind of like, well, what kind of movies do you like to make? It's like, oh man, I don't know, whatever I'm feeling at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's genres that I mean, I love horror films, I love sci-fi, love dramas, but whatever my biggest problem at the moment is, like it will find a genre to fit into, or it will find the story. Like it's not like I'm gonna like, oh, gotta make another horror film. Yeah,
no reason to pigeonhole into one thing.
Yeah,
for sure. Is there anything, are y'all working on anything currently, or like anything upcoming soon, or?
Yeah, I am working on finishing a short called Baru, and it's it doesn't really take place in a time. It's much more experimental, but it's for a proof of concept for a feature I'm working on. I feel like I always tend to write in the future or the past. I don't know why. Whenever when people ask me like, what do you usually write? I just realize like, oh, I just write anything that's not right now. Like, I don't know. I guess I more enjoy escapism. So that's definitely where I lean towards, which has been interesting because it's like, that's why this project, Flowergiver, has been so fun for me because it's not something I would have written, it kind of makes it easier for me to give like impartial input or like work a different part of my brain, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Part of it can like relax and not really focus on like, I guess oh, this is my project, but you can be able to offer that 2 cents. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's been a different creative muscle, but it's been interesting and fun to explore like assisting someone else in their projects instead of like it being my baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, like I haven't actually made a film in a while. I've been putting a lot of my energy into doing a lot of photographic work, and so I'm kind of planning on doing a black and white series that, weirdly enough, kind of like pulls some aspects from like this mood and this atmosphere we're building for Flowergiver. So this kind of like this idea of like natural decay or like urban decay, which I kind of feel like is a aesthetic we've been building for this.
Very San Antonio.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that's just something, an aesthetic I've always kind of like really loved. So like doing work that's really inspired by like Olga Karlovac and Manuel Alvarez Bravo. So really kind of, it's been weird to kind of like step away from, writing scripts constantly and cutting projects to just doing a lot more, single still images.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. What are you shooting with?
Oh, whatever I can find, man. I mean, like, yeah, that's kind of like another thing I love, like obsolete media formats. So, you don't need, I am a strong believer in like, you don't need the new GH4, like the new thing that shoots in 8K. Like if you have a toy camera like that where you can just throw in a roll of 35 millimeter black and white, you can make some cool stuff.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I agree. I'm on the same page. We have better cameras on our phones and like they're making movies with.
Yeah, it's depressing.
Like,
it's depressing.
Like,
there's so much that,
but you need the new one to make the photo. Like,
the pixel peepers.
It's
and
been
all
a
that.
big debate, or not a big debate, but we've been debating back and forth a lot because it's like making the budget. We're like, well, do we budget for like a nice camera or do we budget for a shitty camera? Because it's like both of us kind of like that, like, like handheld look, or like not handheld, but like handheld cameras, like from like the early 2000s. So yeah, it's been interesting trying to figure out what look we want.
Yeah, I know we talked a bit about like 90s, 2000, like the 90s and 2000s looks. And I know one thing I'm really inspired by is like 90s Japanese cinema or pretty much like Hong Kong, Japan, Korea. They tend to some of my favorite films of that era have this kind of like mini DV, like HD camera look, which is, I don't know, it's so specific to that time period. Mm-hmm. But it's like such a cool, unique look. And it's like, oh man, you really don't need like, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble by saying that. You don't need like the new Ari to like, to shoot, to make something like a vibe with like what like mood you're trying to get. Yeah. So
each project's different.
Let's go with that.
And it's also like, for me, like, I don't care about the camera as much as I care about the lenses and the audio. Mm-hmm. Like to me, I'm like, what lenses are you using?
Glass is important.
Yeah. Like you can make any camera body look like anything with a lens. So yeah, we're definitely not big gearheads. We're more story focused.
Practical, like, pragmatic about it.
Very pragmatic.
Let's get the job done.
Yeah.
I think that's a good side to be on. It's like the almost like DIY mentality of it. Like we just make it work with whatever we got.
Yeah. I mean, that's fun because you also kind of become like I don't know, like akin to like not a mechanic, but like being like a craftsperson, like in the wood shop. I kind of like feel like there's an aspect of like being like a DIY filmmaker. Like those two things kind of mesh a bit. So I like the feeling of like we're about the story. We're about like building like the story elements. But I definitely think to like both of our work, there's an aspect of like. Get in there, get the hands dirty, use what tools we got to make this art.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean, that's part of the growing process too. It's like figuring out how all this stuff works.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can be like a helicopter director or something. Just maybe when you're in the stratosphere, as far as fame wise, you don't have to get hands on so much. But as far as the indie world and all that stuff, like we're on the same boat. We're all just trying to make this thing get to the other side of the shore or whatever.
And I'm sure, like at SAC, being a teacher, you're just like, throw some duct tape on it, let's get shooting.
We got 15 minutes till we lose sun, and it's time to get a single shot out or something. Yeah, so
Pull the car around, bounce a light on it, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it helps too, because like when you're constantly, like even in a situation being a teacher, like you're constantly problem solving. And like that's all like being a director is, being a producer, working on set. You're just constantly problem solving. So as far as I'm concerned, one goes into the other.
That's cool. Has there ever been like a crazy like, okay, I need to make this work, and these two things came together and like it's working now? And
oh man, yeah. I mean, other than like wanting to get a dolly shot at a supermarket, so you throw the camera person in the shop, in the shopping cart or on the wheelchair. There's always instances like that. Luckily, not so many like that anymore. But yeah, I mean, especially like doing things at like the independent level, you're constantly like trying to fit like this bit into this joint to make this work. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen Shitty Rigs on Instagram, right? Such a good account. I've definitely been on some sets with some shitty rigs. Questionable rigs, we'll call them.
Yeah, but they made it work. Or hopefully they
got the
did.
shot. I mean, yeah, exactly. Hey, nobody died.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Have you guys done a 48 here in San Antonio?
I've done one.
That's all it takes.
I don't know.
That's all you gotta do.
You don't think you need to do one. Yeah.
I've done 7.
Yeah, I've done a few with some friends. Like pretty much every year it was like, oh, let's do it. And then at the end of the 3 days, we're like, let's never do this again. And then next year comes around, we're like, oh, let's do it.
Yeah, you kind of forget it's like drinking or something. You're like, I forgot
can't
how
be
bad that
that
hangover was. Yeah.
And then you're there and you're like, oh, this is terrible.
I know, especially in San Antonio when they do it in the summer.
Oh yeah. Some good times.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a part of me that's like, oh, maybe this will be the last one, because I mean, it is fun being miserable on them in a sense, but like I mean, I done some in the Valley. I've done the 48s. I did 100-hour once. Yeah, they're all really draining, and
absolutely.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, again, like I'm in my 30s, so I need to check my stress levels. So.
Yeah, we stopped doing them a while back. Pre-COVID, I believe. But yeah.
Like you said, there's something that weird moment, like when you're deep in a project, it's overwhelming, it's hard, but it's like, I don't want to do this ever again, but there's that drive, like I want to be here though. Like this is fun for me in a weird way, and like that's a weird feeling.
Yeah, I think it's like the perfectionist, the artist wanting to make it perfect or wanting to make it as perfect as you can, and it's like, even though you're like, the sacrifice will be worth it. Yeah.
After it's like, okay, this was sick. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, I think, they always say like, or for like wanting to be there, there's that sense of like, oh, I don't know how to do anything else. But I think part of it too is just like, when it comes together right, like when you show something you're really proud of like that, there's something so sweet about that. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's for me, it's not just like the pleasure of like having made like a good project. It's like when you get to see people watch it and like they really enjoy it or they connect with it. I mean, that's like a hit of dopamine that like a lot of people don't understand.
Mm-hmm. It's like reverse stage presence.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that just the connection of like putting something out there and it like resonating with other people is just like that weird like validation kind of thing. But it's like, oh, we're all the same.
Yeah. I was being like, oh, that translated. Thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like I did I can't remember what it was, but I was in a filming block and it was all these comedies and then my film was a horror. And so like everyone was expecting to laugh and then they just kept being like, it was just dead silent the entire time. And then like at the very end, like there was like a jump scare and everyone screamed. I was like, yes.
Got him. Yeah. You prime them with the comedy and then you seal the shit out.
Yeah. I was like, I'm like, how am I in this block? But it worked out.
It worked out. Yeah, that's cool.
I literally had the same experience. I'm not going to say which festival, but it is like local where they
might be the same one.
Yeah, where like I had like this really intense like drama I made a few years back about media workers at risk, like in other countries, specifically on the border, and they stuck this really intense drama. In the middle of like comedies and music videos, like they stuck it right after this like really heavily produced like I think it was like an inspirational song, kind of like Christian music. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
Oops.
Here comes my movie to bring down
I think
the
they
whole
just do
mood.
it for fun. Just to start a fire. I don't know, but it's fun. It's funny.
Yeah.
Sometimes you wonder if someone's even doing programming. They're just like, these things, these all fit in the time, so that's the way it is.
Feels like it sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like basically
It's more fun that way.
Like they're just taking like, instead of like the two, like an action figure and a Barbie doll, and just like, yeah, we'll make these two friends, or like maybe they'll connect. And yeah, that's like that's the equivalency of like some of this programming.
Just a handful of Legos and some Kinects in there. You're like, yeah, these are good.
It's the same.
You can have fun with that. Sure, you
You can make something. Yeah.
Get creative. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So teaching at SACI, how did that come about, I guess, and how is it going now?
Well, I mean, you started there before I did. I started in 2018 as a teaching artist there, and worked there, through COVID, and became their director last year. So, I mean, it's been one of the most illuminating experiences of my life, one of the most rewarding, one of the toughest. It's weird that I'm going to be quoting The Devil Wears Prada right now, but I recently watched The Devil Wears Prada. And I think there's a quote from Stanley Tucci, where it's like, when you become good at your job, your life hangs on the wire. And that, I'm not saying I'm good at my job, but I do care about it a lot. So I definitely stress over the little things, making sure things are good for the kids so they can make their art. And I'm very kind of I do internalize when a project doesn't come out so well where it could have, but just it's all kind of been it's really made me think about the kind of art I want to make and what I'm doing as an artist, for my community, and how I'm passing down what I've learned. So, I mean, it's been an incredible ride. Recently, and this has been on, I'm not saying anything new, this has been on social media and on the news, SACI has had financial troubles over the past year or so. So there is a whole campaign to donate to SACI, which whoever's watching, please donate, because it's an amazing organization. But yeah, even with those troubles that are going on, I mean, the kids are amazing who come there. The staff are amazing all of them are dedicated working artists. So even though there's been times where it's been rocky, it should never die.
Yeah.
It should continue on.
Yeah, it sounds cool. It's tuition free.
Completely tuition free. It's year long. There's several different studios that focus on different mediums. I work in media arts, which you were a student in media arts. So film and photography, but we have an amazing theater program. We have an amazing visual arts studio, and we have an amazing Hive studio, which is coding and programming, things of that nature.
Nice. Sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an awesome place. Yeah.
We'll add a link for sure. We'll add some information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just in the lower thirds, yeah.
Well, probably, I mean,
We'll see.
just put it in the middle.
Yeah, just over my
Just
eyes
right
the whole time.
Like while you're talking about it. So what else, what do you guys got going on outside of film?
Ooh, outside of film.
Yeah.
I gotta think about that for a second.
Yeah, so I mean, I just moved. I'm
Yeah?
actually not too far from y'all, but
Oh, nice.
Recently moved out of the West Side, moved into the medical center. With my partner Alexandra. So it's been crazy, finishing up like this like last semester of SAC, getting this film up and running from the ground, moving. So it's like the schedule's been busy, and I gotta somehow find time to make art in the middle of it.
Yeah, that's hard to do.
Yeah.
Like, today I know when I get off work, I'm gonna, for me, it's like, I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna find time to draw. I'm gonna try to do my creative thing. I'm just like, I'm smoked. Like, there's other things piling up. Like,
Dude,
it's
like
tricky.
sometimes the hardest thing for an artist is just to make art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the reserves run low quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, me and my partner are building a tiny house right now, so all of my free time goes there. And then also to flowergiver. So it's hard for me to like put time aside to have days off, because I'm always like, oh, I could be doing this, or I could be doing this, or I could be doing this.
Yeah.
And it's like part of the time I like have this urge to, another part of the time it's like, well, if I don't do it now, when's it gonna happen? So yeah, I'm trying to schedule more time off, go to the river a few times this summer. We'll see.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be a hot one.
I know.
It's already too hot.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely need to like have more just like days at the pool, or like, yeah, don't sit in front of a computer. How about you just sit at this couch and read? But yeah, it's hard doing this and making the film independently.
Oh yeah.
But it's rewarding.
I bought like a bunch of books when Half Price Books on Broadway was going out of business, and I haven't even opened one. I'm like, but I had to get them. So
I have them. I'm gonna read them. Like, yeah.
Which one, you have one specific one you're looking forward to reading?
I got this one about mandalas written by Carl Jung, which I'm excited about because I've heard a lot about him, and they say that's a good book to start on. So We'll see what comes of it.
Jung's pretty good, pretty interesting.
Yeah, he's very hard to read. I always like buy books like that are really hard to read that I'm like, I'll use this. I'll read this right before bed. Yeah, this will be great.
It's a good time to do it. And it's like, what are you even talking about?
I had a friend who like recommended me a podcast on like Jungian psychology.
Okay.
And like I listened to an episode, and I'm like, oh man, this is great. Don't get me wrong, but this is definitely like very cerebral.
Yeah.
And I guess I was just like, I don't know. I go through like different periods where like I like, yeah, I want to read something that'll really just kind of like rearrange my thinking process. And there's other times where I'm just like, I just want to open a graphic novel and like be able to read this very quickly and get, that quick dopamine hit.
Yeah.
I just love information. I like factual stuff. Which is bad because like I'm like I'll read to relax, and then I'm like, oh my god. Yeah, like I'll read one page and I'll be like, wow, that was life altering information. Yeah.
So mostly nonfiction is kind of where you lean towards?
Yeah. I think it's kind of my escape because like my brain, my work, it's a lot of like fiction. So I like to like ground myself in reality a little bit with reading.
Yeah, I try to balance. I'll go back and forth between fiction and nonfiction.
Okay. What are you reading right now?
Right now I'm actually reading one called the Gnostic Gospels, which is like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but like they're like extra biblical texts that were kind of discovered, I think like not that long ago, maybe in the 50s or something, when they kind of like got uncovered. They just found like this urn with like a bunch of manuscripts in it, and then they were translating it, like selling on black market and stuff back and forth.
So
there's like an interesting history to it.
When were those written?
They were that's the thing. It's like kind of figuring out when they were written, the period of some of them maybe earlier than even like the regular Gospels, which, I mean, those aren't necessarily the time period that Jesus was alive. So like like 70 AD, I think, 70 to 200 range. I don't know. It's pretty interesting, but it's going through the history of like how they found the text and like where they ended up and all that stuff, and kind of like why the ideas are different.
That's really cool.
I
Yeah.
don't know, it's fun.
Have you heard about the Apocryphas?
Sounds familiar. I mean, there's in some of the titles of like the ones that they found, the manuscripts are like the Apocryphon of John and stuff like that. So I mean, I'm not sure necessarily what the overlap is.
They're just so Apocrypha is like the word they use when it's religious text, but it's not officially canonized in the Bible.
Yeah.
So
essentially, I think that's
so
what
I think it's essentially the same thing. Yeah, because there's a bunch of Apocryphas and those stories are wild.
Cool.
Yeah, there's some. If you want to read some crazy Bible stories, like that's where I would start. Because the other project I'm doing that I'm writing, it takes place in like the 1400s in Germany, kind of around the same time as the witch trials, and when Protestants separated from the Catholic Church, and just like so I've been going back and reading a lot of like crazy weird like Christian lore.
I'm sure
There's a
like,
lot.
yeah, stuff they did where it's like that was practical, like okay, like that made sense to do, like all right.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because like not really Christian based, but it's interesting just going back and looking at the history, like Hansel and Gretel, and like the story about like witches eating children. That was because there was a like mini ice age in Europe, so a lot of the parents, instead of like letting their kids starve, like would send them into the woods, and so they wouldn't have to kill them themselves. It's very heavy stuff. Yeah, sorry.
I didn't do this. I'm not a bad parent.
Yeah, it's like, well, it's just interesting. Like the story of the witch from Hansel and Gretel is to cover up the parents killing the children themselves and eating them. So it's kind of like reverse Santa Claus or something.
Man, I know what's going on the TBR list later to be read. Yeah.
What about you? You reading anything right now?
Yeah. So I weirdly enough, I decided to like pick up The Grapes of Wrath, and it's a book that like they make you read in high school, but I don't know, I wasn't like the biggest reader in high school, but there's something about like I don't know, just like reading a story about like the Depression and the state of America at the time that really appealed to me. So like just kind of like going through that right now, that, and also just trying to I'm like a very much like a coffee book person too. So like in the morning, like I tend to like look more at like photography books and just kind of like get inspired by that quite a bit. So I've just been kind of like feasting on a bunch of different photographers in the mornings, and in the evening, that's when I'll do more like reading something like fiction, nonfiction. Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of like a weird thing, I guess, to like pick up. But, I mean, like that novel at this time, and it's like, it's dense, but I don't know. I'm just trying to get back into like my own just like reading habits, because like during COVID, I became like a very voracious reader. But now it's kind of softened a bit. So I'm just trying to get back to that.
Yeah, I think COVID is definitely when I picked up like reading more consistently than I had been.
Yeah, for sure. When you got nothing else to do all day.
What about you? You read anything? No?
I want to read, but no.
You had that Rick Rubin book recently, right?
Yeah, I restarted it. I got halfway through it, I think. And then I was like, I really need to start reading. So I just grabbed it. I try to read in the morning, little tidbits. Like I can only do like maybe like 10, 15 minutes right now. So I'm just like, okay, that's cool. I got to go do something else. So, but yeah, I'm hoping to read more. I probably should.
Audiobooks? Dude.
Oh, yeah.
Might work.
Listen to my books.
Yeah. I've never been a big audiobook person, though, so I don't know. I like taking notes and, like, just the tactile feel.
I try, but it's distracting. If I'm doing, like, if I'm trying to work or draw and it's on, I'm just like, oh, what is this saying?
Yeah, and it's like, I feel like I like podcasts more because it's like people usually bounce off each other, so you hear the same idea two different ways. So it kind of, like, stays in my head more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get that. My partner's a really big like audiobook reader. I know she like just read like RuPaul's book and Julia Fox's book, and like I will like listen to an audiobook if it's a book that I have to read. just to like get through it. And like, admittedly, like the ideas may not stick as much as like if I'm like opening the page. But yeah, it's just like one of those things. Like, I don't know. I feel like I have to make time for it now. Like to like sit down and also just have like the willpower to like, okay, you're going to read for an hour and yeah.
And then you can watch TV.
Yeah. Yeah. Like parenting yourself to do it. Yeah.
You guys watching anything currently? Have you seen anything recently? Any movies that are out or new shows that are anything stand out?
The last thing I saw in theaters was Poor Things, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, I wanted to see that. I haven't seen it.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I saw Furiosa. I think that's the last thing I saw in theaters. Man, you almost had me whip out the letterbox right now.
Right.
Yeah. But at home, I think the last thing I watched was actually Paris is Burning. I watched that like 2 days ago with my partner. And that I just felt like was a whole education into a world that I'm like slowly just kind of learning more and more about. So have y'all seen that?
What is that one?
Yeah, so it's about it's set in like in New York in the 80s, and it's about like the Harlem drag and ballroom scene. So it features a lot of like legends in the drag community. And yeah, it's a documentary. It's not very long. It's about 70, 80 minutes. But it really kind of goes over like, these drag artists and why they perform, the realities of their existence at that time. I mean, it starts in 1986, so it's like at the height of the crack epidemic and also AIDS. So like it's how they contend with that reality while also, getting on a stage and being whatever they want to be, which I think was like really empowering.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Highly recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out. Have you seen Tu Wong Fu? Is that the name?
Yeah.
It's longer than that, but I can remember the first part.
Tu Wong Fu. Thanks, Julie Newmar.
Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you seen that one?
No.
It's great. It's what is it? Patrick Swayze, John Leguizamo, and Wesley Snipes. Just in drag.
Yeah.
Dude, trying to get like a cross country to a show.
Okay.
It's fantastic.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Was that the 80s? I don't even know when that came out.
I think that's early 90s.
Early 90s, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I was like, I don't know, like coming from like that theater background, like, I don't know, I love John Leguizamo, and I know like a lot of people in the theater community like just really dig his stuff. He's done like a few like one-man shows. He's put out books. So yeah, I mean, I really like that movie. I love that character. Chichi Rodriguez is the name. But yeah, fantastic movie.
John Leguizamo. Awesome.
Yeah,
I grew up with him, watching his movies.
I recently saw what was that movie? The Pest?
Yeah.
It was just like such a like new side of him, and like that was wild.
The intro's cool. Just the way he does the different faces and stuff.
In the shower
cameras,
and everything. Yeah.
Nuts.
What was the last thing I saw him in? John Wick?
I've never actually seen any of the John Wicks.
Oh, really? I've
Yeah.
seen the first two.
Yeah. I think I've seen the first 3. I think there's 4 right now. I didn't see the last one, whatever it was. I don't know. It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
You could probably just watch one and get the point. Like they just flesh
It's
out
really
the world
just
a little
about,
more.
it's just like really good fighting. It's
Yeah.
not really about the story. It's
Yeah.
just like the story's there to facilitate good fighting.
Fun choreography and all that.
Yeah.
How close is it to like, I don't know, like a John Woo? Because I mean, I love like Hong Kong action films and those kind of like very ballet action heavy kind of.
It's not as ballet heavy. It's definitely more like knife and gun, like play heavy, more than like the whole like these huge ensembles like where they're not cutting and like everyone's flipping over each other. Like,
Okay.
yeah, it's more, I don't know, it's more just following him like pretty close, just hurting other people in different ways.
Very American.
It's very American. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I think I saw like a scene on YouTube where it's like there's like Keanu Reeves and someone else are like having a gunfight, but they both have silencers and they're
and they're, like,
shooting
in
in like a
public?
public area.
yeah.
And I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever
Yeah,
seen.
just like,
Very American.
absolutely. Yeah.
It's weird how fast media has like just keeps shifting and changing, you know, like because it's weird thinking of how short the history of like film is, and then like how quickly things have just ramped up.
Yeah. Now we're, I don't know, maybe going too far with AI and all that.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I just watched Late Night with the Devil. Have you guys seen that one?
Oh, I want to see it so bad. I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it yet.
I liked it overall. Like it's, I mean, cool, like a little indie flick. There's, I don't know if you saw that people were upset about like the use of AI in that.
Oh
Which,
no.
I don't know. It didn't seem terribly offensive to me in the film, I guess. But I understand like the argument of like it's cutting out work from actual visual effects artists and stuff like that. I don't know. I mean, how do you guys think about
I don't know
that whole situation?
I'm not really. I don't know if I'm like educated enough to say.
Oh, yeah.
It's scary, obviously, as a creator, because you're like, wait, like, you know, it's just weird to think of like using robots to do creative stuff instead of like the stuff that no one wants to do. I don't get it.
Exactly.
I don't really get it, but I mean, it's happening. So got to figure out a way to work with it. But yeah, I saw recently like they just made an app to like a software kind of like Unreal Engine, but for manipulating like AI and video. Whoa. And yeah, and so now you don't even have to like have a camera or like, you know what I mean? You can just go into this app and create your own movie completely like based off of AI, which
Just
is like cool and also like scary.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not really sure where it's gonna go.
I mean, I think used ethically is great.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't say I have a softened like thought point of view on AI. I tend to see it like almost like a camera or like anything else as like a tool.
Yeah.
But it like has to be used ethically. And if obviously, you know, if we're cutting people out of jobs, you know, to save some money, that is not the way to use it. But yeah, I've heard like, you know, people like George Lucas, you know, who has kind of like a softened like approach to AI. Mm-hmm. I heard him kind of like talking about it at like the Cannes Film Festival this year, and you know, I believe he kind of had like the same approach to how CGI would be used. So I mean, yeah, perhaps it's a little too early to tell where we're going with it, but I see it as a tool that needs to be used correctly.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
I just don't know. I get concerned because it's like, how do you know if it's being used correctly? Because it's like, who's feeding this AI? Like, I don't know. Yeah. I just don't really know enough about it. But it's like, how can we use it ethically if it's like getting to us already having predispositions about certain things or being pre-programmed already? You know, it's just hard. A normal person to really know if they are using it ethically.
Yeah.
Especially because you don't know what artists like that AI is ripping off of,
yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah, it's like it just dips in and it's like, oh, this looks like so-and-so's work. And it's like, oh, well.
Yeah, and it's like
because it took it from
someone who's using it might not knowingly know they're stealing from another artist, you know? It's like, so I don't really know how to safeguard that.
Yeah, it's kind of a mess,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, there's been no, real regulations towards it. I mean, but I mean, you know, we've been using AI in different ways, like even before this whole debate started about AI and like the film industries, like even like our phones use AI for Face ID, and I mean, there's tons of other applications that use AI. So, I mean, it's definitely something that is on the mind of like a lot of artists that I talk to, and particularly, you know, visual artists.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to see an entire portion of like our industry just decimated by that.
Yeah. It's hard to know where to draw a line with art like that. Like, I completely support AI, you know, like I think like the first time they used AI was to like track DNA, to make it easier to read DNA.
Yeah.
And all of those things are applicable. But yeah, when you're taking another person's art to manufacture art, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, it feels gross.
Feels
something
gross,
weird about it.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, I think with art specifically, because it's like, art is like, I mean, a language in a way where it's like we're trying to communicate things through artistic means.
Yeah,
robots don't necessarily have thoughts.
Exactly, yeah. And I think a lot of a huge difference with AI and humans is just like, humans, like, we have a concept of time in a different way, and like we understand a lot of art is commentary on the times. Like Flowergiver, for example, like it's set in like 2007, and like I don't think that story would be told at all in the same way now, because that's just not how people operate anymore. That's not how kids act anymore. Like, you know, we were talking about how different like the high schoolers are now versus the high schoolers in the script, or like how we were in high school, and like how quickly things like that change. So I think it's just like it's just you lose a lot when you're not having a real artist, not getting the full picture of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll use it in my work. Like in the background, if I'm making a social media graphic, I need a picture of like I think I needed like West Texas. So I'm not going to find any stock images that I need of a car driving through West Texas. So I was like, give me a Ford in West Texas. Did it good. Then I dropped the opacity on it, stuck it in the background for where I needed it. It's like done, turn and burn. But I saw an article recently where there was an AI artist who was making prints, but they were just kind of just writing a prompt off another person who was like actually physically doing the work. So it was like, is that person really an artist, or are they just kind of just typing a prompt? Like, can't really take credit as like, or can you take credit as an artist when you're just typing that in? Like, it's a whole debate. I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah, those are two different things. Yeah.
Do you think it would be different if like the person who created that AI was the one typing in the prompts?
Maybe.
I'm like, my head hurts now.
Yeah. Like, whoa. Yeah,
that's where we draw the line.
The debate's at, like the line of like, are they? Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, to play the devil's advocate a little bit, does that translate to like a film? Because someone just writes the film and then basically giving the prompt to everyone else to make it. Can that person be a writer? Or the writer still be an artist? I think so.
That's a good devil's advocate question. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's a little bit different in film because there's definitely, you give someone, I feel like you kind of like get permission to do certain things. You know, like you like with Alex, it's like I can suggest things, but I'm not going to go rewrite the script. You know, so I think, I don't know. It's just, I guess it's all about consent and how it's being going about would be the big difference.
Yeah. I mean, and with the whole like strike that just happened, WGA, SAG, I mean, it's we're still so early in the process of like how we're going to use AI and who's going to use it for more nefarious means than others. But yeah, I mean, I if it does have a place in the film industry, again, like I hope it's done in a way that is regulated. But again, like, how are we going to? That's for the humans to decide.
Yeah, I mean, there's also like the weird, dangerous aspect of like the deep fake thing. Because like now we have like, I see every other day it's like Biden and Trump like saying stuff to each other where it's just like they're reading a script from some AI generated thing. And
yeah, and a lot of people don't know. Like
sometimes it's really good. Like it's really convincing.
Yeah, and it's all these boomers. They don't see a difference. Yeah. Like sometimes my mom will send me stuff like off of Instagram or Facebook, and I'm like, Mom, that's not real. No, like don't.
You see the extra digit on the hand.
I mean, I've been fooled before too. Like my boyfriend's way more into like Unreal Engine and stuff like that. And like he'll be like, well, watch how it moves and watch how it glitches here. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that. Like, you know, like we watched, what's that one movie that they have like that amazing AI? Oh, what is it called? The Creator.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. They use a lot of like AI, and they were like one of the first movies to downgrade their cameras. So instead of shooting with like the best camera, they actually opted for a shittier camera because they realized.
It's FX3, right?
Huh?
The FX3, like the shot with Sony's?
Yeah, which is not a shitty camera, but compared for movie standards, there's about like $100,000 difference between that and something else. But that movie was insane.
I liked it. It was cool.
I did too, and I was just blown away with the VFX, like or AI, whatever. Like, yeah, it's just. But like again, like we were saying, it's like it's crazy. Like even with like AI and VFX, like we're still going to lesser quality cameras. Like we're like, and let's go back to 2K.
That's Gareth Edwards, right? Yeah, I mean, I know he's kind of like been this like very. Like in all the films that he does, I know he did the Godzilla films, but I'm thinking specifically of this indie he did called Monsters, where I remember seeing that like on Netflix. He did all the special effects himself. It was like his first or second movie. Like just a really like resourceful special effects artist who's also a director.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I dig someone who can use technology to their advantage. But yeah, we're that's still kind of like that slippery slope, I guess.
Mm-hmm. It kind of goes back to what you were saying before of like finding what works, and if it's not the most expensive one, like it works for what we're doing. Like we'll find a way to tinker with it and make it work. So that's cool.
Yeah, I think it's always nice to have the art kind of facilitate what you need for your craft, right? Instead of using your craft to facilitate your art.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
Well, cool. Is there anything you guys want to jump to in particular? Or like,
Yeah. So, I mean, we spoke a little bit about the project, but I guess we can talk about it. Put the feelers out if there's any nonprofits that may, or organizations that maybe want to partner with us. We're already partnering with a nonprofit in town, SACA, so Sanato Cultural Arts. They're responsible for all the murals on the west side near the Alasan and just kind of like throughout that area. So yeah, I know we're definitely looking to partner with other nonprofits to help tell this story in the most authentic, endearing way possible.
Yeah, and we're hoping to be able to hire everyone locally. That's our goal. We're hoping to partner with some local restaurants who might want to donate some of their food for, some shout outs in the film, or switch, food for location. So really any small business who thinks that their stuff aligns with us, we definitely want to pursue stories or nonprofits that involve arts, children, helping domestic abuse, helping with addiction problems, a lot of things. Those are pretty much a lot of the themes that we explore, along with grief. That's a big one. Yeah, so if that sounds interesting, if anyone out there who's listening wants to help out or get involved or is interested in knowing more, you can follow Flowergiver the movie, or no, just Flowergiver movie at Instagram. That's our Gmail handle as well.
And I think next steps is we'll be working on a proof of concept for the film. And, just kind of like continuing forward with development. The script like recently was a semifinalist at the Dallas International Film Festival. So
nice.
we have a couple other things, in the pipeline for it. But yeah, we're really excited to make this movie.
Cool. Hell yeah. And then what about you guys? You have individual Instagrams, I'm assuming? You want to plug your own pages?
Oh, sure. Yeah, my Instagram's just
Yeah.
Grace Goen, Goen. Facebook, same thing.
Yeah. Mine is Alex RMRZ2. That's my Instagram handle. It's also my letterbox handle.
Yeah,
So,
thanks. Cool. Yeah, we need to get, we need to make a letterbox.
Yeah, I mean they're great. They're great, but yeah, that's pretty much my handle on like most social media. If I have an account on that social media,
For sure.
Well, thank you guys for having us and everything.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Yeah, this was fun. It's super cool.
yeah, for sure.